yesterday I started to get a little bit about some of the car vandalisms that occurred to my vehicle, and started to get into how my first conversation with Bujanda, who's an FBI agent for Portland FBI. And I would like to add that after I filed my lawsuits, after I was seriously defamed, I had this friend whose father worked for the Department of Justice, and I had previously worked as a prosecuting attorney, which I didn't really think about that much. And she showed up at my church and started wanting to take me out to have a drink on Friday nights, and I never drank. But I thought, well, I'll have, except for, on my birthday, I think I had a half of a wine cooler to celebrate my 21st birthday. It was, a very rare occasion that I had something to drink, maybe once a year. Maybe like a half a glass once a year at most. So, she wanted to go out and offered to buy me a drink, and I thought, well, now that I've known her for a while and it's just with her in safe company and she's driving safely, it shouldn't be a problem to have one drink. So I began accepting her invitations to do that, and then we would go dancing, and I really loved to dance, and I liked the loud music, and I loved dancing. I didn't like being an exhibitionist exactly. I liked kind of getting into the middle of the crowd and feeling like I could disappear but just hear the music and have fun and dance. And really, we danced. Yeah, we got to work out. And I think for her, some of the appeal was the workout. She's always wanting to lose weight. But for me, I just really loved the music. And so, I might have had one drink, and that would be it for me. And as time went on through the lawsuits, I didn't really notice it, but at first, and then I realized, and then I would have like maybe a drink and a half, something like that. The most that I ever had typically was no more than 2 drinks, because I'm very lightweight. But I think the most that I ever had when going out to a club at any time was maybe 3 drinks, and that was a lot for me. But that was over the course of an entire night too, because I didn't just go out for an hour or so. I wanted to dance. So, and we never went to like hook up with or get phone numbers from men at all. That was never the point. It was to go out with a girlfriend, have a drink, and have fun dancing. And I didn't dance with men in that setting either. I wouldn't get very close to them. I didn't do some of the kinds of dancing that some people do. Just wasn't comfortable with that. And after some time, I realized it was like a little bit later, it was much later, after we've been doing this for about 1.5 years, I was suddenly being ditched. And after my trust was built up in depending on somebody to be there with me, kind of be the quote-unquote safe buddy type of a thing, and to have a safe transportation, to get home, suddenly I had her and a couple other people having me get very drunk, or very intoxicated, I would say, thinking that I was in a safe situation, relying on my past experience, and then being ditched and left in a very vulnerable state. And that led to other incidents of what I think are very close to bordering on date rape, a couple times. Because I never went there for that reason, like to go dancing or anything, but I didn't have a way to get home, or suddenly I couldn't find the person I was there with, or they didn't show up. I was, in a compromised position. So I believe that in hindsight that was part of the tactic, a legal tactic, because they knew that I had such a, quote-unquote, as one person said, pristine history and background. I think they wanted to tarnish that because they'd already defamed me. They defamed me as being some kind of promiscuous person or something, which I wasn't. So I think then their objective was to try to get me to be a party person, to have me drink more or to smoke or to do drugs. I never did drugs, and I tried smoking like a couple puffs on a cigarette one time when Krista offered that to me, and then declined. I've had no interest in smoking. I sort of did it just for the novelty of trying it. But at that time during my lawsuit, that's kind of what started to happen. And I think that was a strategy because, you know, they didn't have anything on me. They kind of wanted to build something, I think. So I think one thing was to sort of bring what looked like my moral standards down and have it look like I was possibly sleeping with one or two individuals when I really wasn't. I was in a bad position. And then to see if I would latch on to anything else that was not very good, which I didn't do. So I was seeing somebody at the time that I met the FBI person, and he was another individual that did the same thing. His name was Jonathan Gold something or other, can't remember what, but he was going to go to OSU and study nutrition, major in nutrition, and then I think he said possibly be a doctor. He was Jewish, and at that time I didn't really think about who was connected to who. I know that I was supposed to meet Krista at a club, and I told her where I was going and she didn't show up. So I already had a drink, and then he was there with his sister Helen. And I ended up, you know, getting a ride through them. I mean, I had my own car, but I wasn't safe to drive, and I never drove while intoxicated beyond my limits. I was always a very safe player when it came to that kind of thing. And so, you know, that led into a different situation where I sort of spent time with him, and then he just started acting very odd. I think that he was giving information to someone, I'm not sure what group, and I don't know who was paying him. I'm sure he was being paid. His mother worked for H&R Block or some sort of bank, and I played mahjong with them one time at their house. And I tried to be friendly, but there was just something very not right about him. And after I'd been introduced a couple of times to Krista's other friend, a man named by the name of Dylan, who was friends with her boyfriend, Ryan Barnes, it just happenstance at a club here and there, a kind of mingling, I guess. I think I met him first time at Bar 15. Anyway, Jonathan then tried this tactic of taking me out to go dancing, because he actually liked to go dancing too. So we went to a club, and we were dancing, and he disappeared somewhere, and then he was just, after I had had a couple of drinks, and he knew I was intoxicated, and we'd gone there together, he said he was going to take off. And there I was, I ran into Dylan again, who was there with, I guess, some friends. And I don't know if Jonathan thought that he was just going to dump me there to go home with some random person. So I said, I don't think so. I am going home with you. You were the designated driver, and I'm not going to be left here. Are you crazy? So then after that, he walked ahead of me. I mean, it was a horrible situation. And I had like some bartender tell me, why are you with this person? He's so rude to you. And, you know, when a stranger who doesn't even know you at all says something, you know that you're probably not just having fun anymore. So, So he took me home, and then after that, at a couple different times, he was going through my closet, checking tags on things. You know, I was going to my hearings and everything in nice suits and tailored kind of, I mean, not, you know, custom tailored, but nicely made dress suits, a couple, and with, you know, a scarf or something around my neck. And he started going through, I don't know if somebody wanted him to find out where I was getting money to buy my clothing, but I did have some savings, and I did work. And he started going through all of my clothes and started asking me how I could afford to get this or buy that, and looked at me suspiciously. He's just acting like a rat. And after that, I said, you know, he tried to come in, dropped me off one time, and then wanted to come in, and I said, I don't know. And I shut the door on him. I had to push him out because he kept trying to push his way in. And that, you know, and, so that was pretty much the last time that I had anything to do with him. And then the next person that I was meeting was this FBI individual. And I did talk to him on the phone a little bit. I talked to a few other people, tried to be nonchalant about things, and I gave people a benefit of the doubt a lot more than I should. I was really reluctant to assume anything, so I tended to keep people around me that weren't necessarily good for me and that were using me for a lot longer than I should have, because I just thought, well, what if I'm wrong? I had a lot of good instincts, but I also doubted myself on those instincts. So it was around that time that I was then meeting Bujanda at the federal courthouse. And, you know, I was waved ahead to go in the elevator with him. We talked a little bit. I said, I thought that maybe he was a lawyer because he was dressed. I don't know, I just thought he was a lawyer. He seemed like a lawyer type to me. And so I was just making small talk, and I asked him if he was. He said no, and then he said he was an FBI agent. And he said something like, you know, you ask a lot of questions. And then he told me he was an FBI agent, gave me his FBI card with some phone numbers on it. Well, he wrote printed out some new, like, home phone numbers and things on it. And then escorted me to the floor where I was going to file my document with this judge about other judges. And then he went wherever. I had my first time with him. I'm pretty sure that it was having coffee. And it was downtown at a Starbucks, and we went to a different restaurant that was quieter because there were a lot of people watching. It was right there by the Portland, this whole, like, square where there was PSU where I went to college, and then also Portland FBI headquarters was there around there, which I didn't know at the time. But, you know, just a lot of people. So, and around this time as well, I was being photographed by, I don't know who these people were that were photographing me, but I was being photographed all the time. I mean, people from long distances with very large lens cameras were taking photos of me, and, like, I would look up and someone's aiming their huge camera at me. And I wasn't really sure what that was about. I thought, well, maybe it's because I'm involved with these lawsuits, and they're very high, have become high profile. And then again, I thought maybe it had to do with something else too, because nobody was ever coming up to me and asking me for an interview. They were just photographing me from a great distance with, you know, high-tech cameras. And then one time I went out with an old friend, kind of an old good friend, who was a guy, just a total friend. And we went out to dinner in downtown Portland, and he said, all those people over at that table are taking your photograph. I had no idea. So it wasn't just people with large lens cameras. There were, like, entire tables of individuals taking my photo at restaurants. And why, I don't really know. But that was around the time, you know, it was kind of towards the end of my lawsuit, and a lot of things were happening.